joins us right now from the, well, Buellton area, we'll just say, with some tips for us. Hey, Patti.
Good morning, Sarah and Randall. Yes, we're here at Rancho Chaotica, or Chaotic Exotics, where they grow orchids. They teach everything about orchids. You can come here and get lessons on Sundays. Now, I brought one of my ailing orchids. Well, my only orchid. I have had it struggling. It's been clinging to life for about 3 years. It's right here. We've named it Lazarus because it's reborn. It's living again. Jim Kotzebar here was so kind to repot it and give me a lesson on how I should care for orchids. And basically, if you get them at a supermarket or a big store, you're getting an orchid that's just about had its last breath.
Right. The problem with the big box stores is to bring it into the country, usually from Taiwan, they have it wrapped in oasis, which is the floral foam. And that stays very wet, and it rots the orchid from the center. So you bring it home, and it's in bloom, and it'll last in bloom for a long time, but you never get it to rebloom. So people assume orchids are difficult to grow, or they have a black thumb, and that's not the case. They just didn't buy an orchid that was live to begin with.
Okay, so you need to repot it after it blooms. And to explain a little bit about the bloom, you say, and they look so complex, there's only 3.
As different as they are, all orchids only have 3 petals. And that is these 3 on the inside. The lip is the most obvious feature of the petal. This petal is a modified for the insect landing strip, essentially. And then these are to attract attention to it. And then these are all on the inside of these 3. You can see them to the back.
And those aren't actually petals?
These are the sepals because they form the bud. They're on the outside.
Okay.
And the whole point of this is to lure the bee, in this case, into the flower, and when he lands here, he depresses the lip. It springs. It's somewhat hinged.
Like a little trap.
Right. And so he has the leverage from the outside to pull it down and see the brighter color inside. So
and that's what attracts him. He wants that yellow.
Right, and he climbs all the way down in, but he then loses that leverage. It springs back up, presses him against the column, and when he goes to leave, if I can move this here so you can see it, he will trip that little cap in front.
And then there goes the pollen. It popped right out.
Yeah, normally it would stick.
And we saw you do this before. It's sticky, and then it sticks to the bee.
It's hard to actually get it off your finger. And then there is a sticky surface right behind where it came out, and that will grab the pollen.
From another orchid.
Or even the same orchid.
Okay.
You can self them. And then what happens is it grows through into the seed pod, into the stem part of the flower, which is the ovary, and that becomes the seed pod. And on a vanilla orchid, which is this guy here.
This is an example of a vanilla orchid, so believe it or not.
In between, in fact, that may be
so we've been eating orchids. If you have vanilla, you're eating an orchid.
Orchid seed pod.
Okay. And this one is a particularly beautiful one. Its common name?
Is the butterfly orchid, because it bobbles in the wind, and it looks just like a butterfly in flight.
A butterfly. Right. That might be one of my favorites. Okay, so, and really quickly, we have to talk about, this is really a cool one.
This is a favorite of the wine tasting rooms in our area because they put it in there and it eliminates bugs, because this pretty little flower here it's when the plant is hungry, it blooms, and it attracts gnats, which land on the leaves that are sticky, and they get absorbed.
Okay, and I'm going to turn this towards the camera, so if Aaron is able to get, I don't know if he can see those gnats, but Sarah and Randall, the sticky leaves hold the gnats that fly around when you're drinking wine.
Right.
You know, because gnats like wine too. This traps them. Isn't that a cool orchid to have?
I like it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a necessity in my house. Thank you, Patti.
For people who